Want me to go get one of Jake's spares for you?
No, that's
Well,
Yeah, but we want to put it on our.
who was it?
I was in here. I was never here.
Oh, did you do the chair? Oh, sorry.
I screwed it.
oh, it says that chair.
Yeah.
What about?
Lisa. Usually got 97. Maybe 100.
You're both returned to it, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, he's more important.
How's that?
Listen to him.
What?
The chairs. Did you get a price on chairs?
Oh, yeah.
See, yeah.
I've been trying to talk to her about, since I got ordered 13,
I know.
maybe one not costing me anything, because they're more expensive than the other places on the show. That's the only place I can go local.
So now we got one that we can never use.
We'll just see Jeff.
Thursday,
Thursday, hook it up.
The day of.
So I'm like, you know what? You want my business?
We
Give me
have to
something.
have, we use
Hard bargain.
Like holidays, yeah. That's what I figured.
So
Glasses.
we have to use this one. This one, but me and one.
Awful quiet.
We'll be getting underway in 10,
Call before the
9,
storm.
8, 3. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City Council meeting for tonight, October 3rd, 2023. Before we get underway, Pastor Dave Brodston from St. Paul Lutheran is here to open us up in prayer. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
Thanks for having me. If you would you pray with me? Almighty God, we give you thanks for this community, for the men and women who lead and govern, for those who stand on guard for us, for those who run in for us. Be with all of us in this community. As farmers head to the field and workers head to the plants, as doctors and nurses head to do work. Keep us safe. Keep us healthy. As we move into this new season of autumn, be with us, guide us, and lead us, so that we may be strengthened in faith and in love. We pray this in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. This meeting is now called to order. Let the record show that all members of council are present this evening. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we get underway this evening, Mayor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Pestle.
Yes, sir.
Front and center. So members of council, we often get the opportunity to present proclamations, and I'm going to cherish this night for a very long time.
Me too.
There's one thing I want to, well, we'll do it after, okay?
All right.
Because people are probably going, who is this dude? You're out of uniform.
I am.
All right. So whereas the year 2023 is dedicated to celebrating the city of Defiance during its bicentennial as a community and history-driven city. Whereas along with the celebration, Santa Claus has been bringing the joy of Christmas spirit throughout generations to the Defiance community, especially to children. And whereas it takes many individuals to volunteer their time as the jolly old man, in the bright red suit with rosy cheeks, a big white beard, and kind eyes, but we specifically applaud the many contributions and unselfish commitments of the Pesifal family throughout the last several decades. And whereas in 1993, Leo W. Pesifal received a special honor from former Mayor Mrs. Rita Kistner for his dedication and moment in time as the community Santa Claus. And whereas following in his grandfather's footsteps, in 2009, Patrick Pesifal continued passing on the festive spirit of Christmas cheer and joy to Defiance families and still does so today. And whereas we truly thank and appreciate our current Santa, Patrick Pesifal, who embraces the magic of Christmas season and works diligently to spread hope, joy, and blessings to all. And whereas community partnerships and support like this are indeed a valued part of the city of Defiance and continue to make it a great place to live. And therefore, I, Mike McCann, Mayor of the City of Defiance, is pleased to honor Mr. Patrick Pesifal, Community Santa Claus, who is highly esteemed in the community upon the celebration of the City of Defiance's bicentennial year. Thank you. So do you have your naughty and nice list?
I do.
You have it with you?
Not with me.
So, well, I just, maybe future reference, when you're looking. I know for a fact, this is the nice side. This is the nice side most of the time.
Oh.
But you might want to check with me week to week.
I can do
All
that.
right?
I have your office phone number.
Okay. You can just send me a text. I'll text you back. But I can't thank you enough.
Thank
We
you.
certainly need people like you, especially like you, that volunteer their time here in the city. What? This?
Yeah,
Turn around.
Another one.
another picture.
No, that's one of his representatives, Sean. Santa has to send out representatives, and that's,
Thank you.
the real Santa's busy making
Thank you.
Did you say this was the money side over here?
Thank you, Mayor McCann.
Thank you.
Mr. Corbett, last time we convened, you requested a study session to discuss water and sewer rates.
I did. So we would like to call this study session of committee as a whole to order and for the purpose of discussing the proposal for our water and sewer rates, and now we'll turn it over to Mrs. Sprague, because it's her show.
Thank you.
No problem.
I brought two experts with me as well. So in the past, the city has partnered with Tetra Tech. They have done analysis in the past for the city. In your Dropbox, I sent you the recent analysis that they did for the city. We're looking at rates from January of 24 for the next 4 years through January of 27. It had been about 10 years since Tetra Tech had done the last full analysis. So I just thought it's been 10 years. The last rates were set prior to COVID. Since COVID, everybody's fully aware of inflation and just all different levels that's hit residents. There's been an increase in chemical infrastructure costs. We've done the riverbank project, that was around $1 million. The river crossing was $1 million. UV at wastewater was over $3 million. The GAC was over 10. And I'll let Adam and Mark go into more detail about the improvements and the challenges they're running into with the maintenance part of the systems. But just in summary, the past rate study, or the last 4 years prior, the rates were about a 3 to 4% increase. And you're looking at, for the average homeowner, 7.1, 4.2, 3.9, and 2.2 over the next 4 years. And what that looks like is about a $7 a month increase, $5, $4, and $2 to just relate it to your monthly bill. And that's just based on the average homeowner's usage. But I'll let Adam come up, and if you want to talk a little bit about the water side. And then when they're done, we can open it up to questions, thoughts.
Well, Probably most of you recall, last year we had a pretty long discussion about chemicals
Hey, Adam,
when,
we all know who you are, folks at home.
okay, Adam McDowell, Water Superintendent, for City of Defiance. Last year we had a long conversation about chemicals, and I'd originally submitted 1.1 million for my chemical budget in the 23 budget. That was cut to 700,000. We had a long conversation then. I said it wouldn't be enough. It's not. We're actually in the hole. We actually had spent through that chemical budget by the end of March of this year. So we're probably going to be close to $600,000 in the 23 budget, over in chemicals alone. The budget we're submitting for the 24 budget for chemicals is about $1.4 million. This last 23's was 700 is approved. So it looks like it's doubled, but it's not, because I submitted 1.1 last year. The problem is chemicals have went through the roof, and I can't really explain why. But we are seeing percentages for chemicals. Let's see, I think on average, our chemicals have increased 78% in the last 2 years. And that's an average of them. I have chemicals that have over doubled. I had some of them that doubled first year and then went up another 60% the second year. And what's really killing us they're our biggest chemicals. It's not the little chemicals that we use a little bit of, it's our big ones. It's ferrochloride, lime, GAC went absolutely crazy. And that really is, I mean, electric has went up, everybody saw that. We're a large electrical user. Our electric budget is about $300,000 a year. So whenever people see increases at home, we're experiencing them as well. And then for whatever reason, our industry, the chemical budgets chemicals have been fairly hard to procure anyways, but the cost of them just went through the roof. And the GAC costs have went very high. That's been being driven by a couple of things. One of the big ones is PFAS and PFOS regulations. If you've seen that in the newspaper, those are Teflon and chemical compounds are starting to regulate really heavy. EPA's been aggressive in how they're doing that. All across the entire country, you have a massive amount of usage for granular activated carbon because it's the best available technology. So what's happening with that is that's driving a shortage in the market and it's pushing prices up through the roof. One thing I will say about this is that there is a small increase in the readiness to serve charge for us. It's only it's less than $2. The GAC project was held off a long time, specifically to keep that readiness to serve charge from coming down because the capital cost drives that readiness to serve. If you were involved with Tetra Tech the first time, we structured it that way based on our debt service powers the readiness to serve, and then the operating is covered under the commodity charge. So by delaying the GAC project as long as we did, we were able to get rid of debt at the same time the GAC debt come on. The river crossing was unexpected, and we got stuck with that. Kind of expected it, but we didn't expect to replace it. So we're dealing with this capital cost increases as well, but the readiness to serve charge, like I said, is going up, but I think we've managed that as well as we can by planning ahead. The chemical costs, there was no way for us to see, and I wish I had a better explanation for it, but you're looking at almost $1 million increase in our chemical budget in the last 3 years. And I mean, when you're looking at 20% of our budget, basically, there's just no way around that. Okay?
Thank you, thanks.
Those of you that don't know me, I'm Mark Leonard. I'm the superintendent out at the wastewater plant. And I guess it would be an understatement to say that 2023 has been a challenging year for us in running the operations of the wastewater plant. The Ohio EPA mandates on top of higher electric rates, higher gas rates. We have 25 sewage lift stations in addition to the plant. So monthly, we're paying 26 electric bills. Give you an idea, the plant runs about $15,000 a month on electric, and Kingsbury Lift Station, if it's a dry month, it'll run you about $6,000 a month on electric, and if it's a wet month, it can run as high as $12,000 a month on electric. So I believe that even though the electric rate came in late this year, the raise, and it wasn't budgeted for because of it being so dry, that has actually helped us on our electric. So I think we're gonna be okay on electric, but that's unfortunately, and the farmers don't wanna hear it, but it's only because it's been such a dry month. Getting parts is very slow. I've ordered parts right from January and I still don't have them yet. Sometimes it's quicker to get parts from Germany, where a lot of pumps and like specialty equipment that we use is manufactured versus getting it in the United States, which it sounds crazy, but I don't know if their infrastructure is up and running a little bit better than ours, or if they have the workforce that we don't have. I really don't know, but Adam touched on chemicals. Chemicals a huge cost that we did not anticipate this year at all. That went up like just within like a couple of months into the year. We get a tanker truck about once a month. It's called sodium aluminate. We use it to precipitate out our phosphorus in the treatment. And when that truck used to pull in, it used to cost us about $8,500. Now when that truck pulls in, it costs us $19,000. And that was an unexpected cost. I can't cut back on it because we have phosphorus limits to meet. And, that's something that they're even tightening down on more as we speak. Have a meeting with the administrator on Friday to discuss how EPA's new mandates with the TMDL coming out. If you've all heard about that on the Maumee River, TMDL is an acronym for total maximum daily loading that the Maumee River can have. And so they're gonna cut down the phosphorus even more on the point sources. Point sources are wastewater plants, anything that they can regulate. They can't regulate farm fields. So they're gonna go after us. So right now, we have like a 1 monthly limit. Now they're gonna tell us to go down to a half part monthly limit. What's it mean? More chemicals. What's more chemicals mean? More money. So everything's just money this year, and we try to do as much as we can in-house. We do as much repairs as we can. I try to use local contractors when I can, but it's been a struggle, and I know the proposed rate will help us out a lot. So, and then down the road, I don't know, Ryan, if you talked about the IWIP being improved and that.
Yeah, we touched base on it last week. I just gave a kind of a brief snippet of it, but if you wanted to go over a little bit of it of what that's gonna cost over the next 20 years.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief on that, but so the first phase of our IWIP is really has to be done next year, and it's $150,000 just to do some weir adjustments on our CSOs. That's not too much, but we have to go into plant expansion at the wastewater plant to put in a big EQ basin and put in newer, better technology bar racks that screen out stuff when it comes into the plant. And then we're also gonna take the opportunity to put in a septic receiving station. Septic receiving station is not necessarily mandated, but we are collecting a pretty good chunk of revenue by taking in septic, and we have to turn it away when it's raining. So if we put this receiving station, we'll be able to take more septic during wet periods and that. But the 5 million gallon EQ basin, we're gonna go into design. We're gonna actually pick the engineering firm yet this year, but 5 million gallon EQ basin will cost about 10 million. The bar racks will cost another million and a half. Septic receiving station will be about $500,000. So that's a good chunk of money right there, and that's coming up fairly quick. But down the road, some years we have the force main from Kingsbury Lift Station. That force main was put in the 1950s. That force main comes right through by the sheriff's station, and then right by what do they call that? Defiance County East, and then it cuts out and comes right down the center of East 2nd Street from there. And, it's 1950 sewer line put in there. It's 20-inch. It's got three, well, it has 250 horsepower pumps and one 200 horsepower pump push and flow in it. So if that thing ever blows, it's gonna put a heck of a hole right in the middle of East Second Street. And, you know, you'd have major repairs. So we have to start thinking about replacing that. That we're looking at about a cost of about $10 million just for the pipe to run from Kingsbury to the plant. We're already thinking about rerouting it, taking a different direction, and but that's something that'll happen within the next 5 to 7 years. So that's coming up. Further on down the line is Kingsbury Lift Station, another piece of infrastructure that was put in the late 50s. That lift station, it's just too antiquated to keep trying to update just because of the design and the structure, the design of the structure. You can only put so big of pumps in there without causing problems. It's called cavitation, and you burn up your pumps, you burn up your impellers and stuff. But that lift station right now, today's dollars, it's estimated at 15 million. But we're talking 18 years.
Yeah, it's like year 18 or 19 of the IWIP.
Yeah.
We got to put it at the very end.
But if today's dollars are 15, I don't know what those dollars are gonna be.
There's also money that we have to spend in between then and now, not on that pipe, and then also on the pump station, starting to do design and prep work. We have to figure out where we're gonna put them.
Right. So we have stuff for the next 20 years. We have things that have to be done, and then we have infrastructure that has to be maintained. And we have over 100 miles of sewer line in the ground in the city. And with the camera truck, we're doing a pretty good job of amassing a list of what needs to be replaced, what needs to be repaired, what can we line. Our river crossings, those again, were put in the 50s. So we have pipes that go under the rivers from Pontiac Park to Fort Street. Then we have pipes that go from the library over right to to Kingsbury Park. And then we have another river crossing on the north end of Riverside. There's like 3 houses down there. It's north of Hopkins Street. There's a river crossing that goes from there over to Allglaze Street. And all of those have to be maintained. I can't televise them. I don't know what the condition of those pipes are under the river. And so we have it in the budget this year to at least get one of those crossings evaluated to see if do we have problems in them. You know, it would be catastrophic if one of those pipes broke and, you know, all the sewage flows into the river. So we have a lot of things that we have to maintain, and then we have new mandates from the Ohio EPA that we have to meet. And so when I saw, you know, what Tetra Tech put together here, I thought, you know, they did a good job of looking at what our current needs are and what our future needs are. So I thought they did a really good job. So.
No, I was very pleased with, and I mean, this was months process of communicating with them, communicating with you guys, and just talking out different situations that we think are going to be issues. We still want to maintain a fund balance, and this increased structure would help us over 4 years maintain a balance of 1.6 million as a cushion in case it doesn't go far when something major happens, but it would be there in case, you know, something would. And it's also important to know that, like Adam said, when those chemical costs went up, we did not adjust a rate in 23. I mean, they were up in February, and we did not adjust rates. We're paying prior to COVID rates, and that's burned a little. You know, now we're trying to catch up and level that out. And it's a self-funded program. I mean, it's paid for by the users. If you see the parks at Kingsbury being redone, that's not coming, or that money is not shared, it's separate line, fund items. We're getting ready to negotiate contracts, that's separate, so it's important to know that the users are the funders of these systems.
I didn't know if anybody had any questions before.
Do we have any questions?
I had a question for Mr. McDonald. I know when we went to this GAC, we had talked about possibly saving on chemicals at the time. Apparently that didn't turn out. Is there any way that is there any chemical alternatives instead of using bleach, use vinegar? I'm not familiar with all the chemical terms. Can you use one versus another one, or is it specific to one chemical?
Well, we've looked at doing some changes in process, but as I requested the EPA to allow us to try that, they've denied it. Without getting too complicated, the chemical process we use is part of enhanced coagulation to knock down our organics level, which is part of our THM compliance. We're getting less life out of the carbon than what we hoped. It is definitely processing faster, but because we have so much organics in the plant, it's shortening the life of the carbon, it's creating some situations there for us. But that's compounded by how much ferrochloride we feed, but the EPA won't allow us to cut back on the ferrochloride because that reduces the organics as part of that original THM. We hired a consultant, and the EPA still wants a complete plant study done, and which we'll probably look at doing in '24. The problem is we still have so much organics. When Mark talks about the IWIP program, we talked about the river, the work that Mark has done and myself and Jen English to work on the river comes down to the water coming into our water plant. Because we have a very, very problematic water source. And it's why we're so chemical heavy, is because we have one of the worst source waters for a surface water plant that I know of. And it's what causes us or it's why it costs so much to treat this water. The fact that we have to do so much to be able to get it potable is we have an elaborate plant, and so we are chemical heavy, but we soften, we coagulate, we sedimentate, disinfect. Now we're dealing with biological processes as well with the GAC. And that's part of the reason why the GAC hasn't lasted as long, is because we have issues with pH dropout, things like that. So we're running the GAC harder than what we want to. And so we're continuing to try to optimize.
And I know when the GAC came in, the THMs was a key issue that we tried to maintain, and I think we've maintained them. We had control of those. The other thing is do we use water, or can we market our water more? I'm not sure if other facilities utilize our water or not, as far as a product. To see if we could, maybe there's other companies, outside companies that need their cistern filled. Do we utilize that service? Do we have that service available? I know there was discussion out at, I believe, the grain elevator at one time. We were gonna put a spigot out there, but I'm not sure if that followed through or not.
Station.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the ballpark fill station. And it's actually in our capital budget again. We had it in last year to install a ballpark station. We continue to bounce around on that location because it's either somebody else's land or how much it's gonna cost to improve it. To be honest, we fill at our plant right now, but we're only able to fill during first shift during the week. We actually dropped rates to allow us to sell more bulk water because our bulk water rate used to be almost double. But we do plan to put a bulk water station in. It never sells that much water though, whenever it comes to the grand scheme of things. It's why every time we talk about an economic development project, every time we look at a large user, commercial user, where we leveled out the rates and we got rid of the declining block. Some of you may remember that, but we restructured this. We used to have a very significant declining block, so industrial users paid very little for their water on the top end. Now we have one flat rate regardless of who's using what. That makes a big industrial user, when they come in, that has the ability to drop rates for everyone. But we have a plant that's designed for 8 million gallons a day, and we're flowing about 3.3 million. And so much of those costs are fixed. You know, when you look at staffing, debt, all those things are a fixed cost. So if we bring a customer in that uses $1.5 million a day, that cuts rates, because that's the way we're structured. So.
Right. And along with that byproduct or that product, I know that they also deliver, I call it sludge. The sludge, they go out and put it on the fields and so forth.
Which that cost went crazy too, because if you've been tracking diesel, when we bid our contracts originally, diesel was, I think, maybe $2.50 a gallon. Last year it was almost $6. So my sludge hauling costs have tripled in the last 5 years. And, you know, so those are just, it's a strange time.
I didn't know if that sludge was your part or if that was Mark's part.
We actually have, we both have.
Both have sludge?
Believe it or not, I have more than he does, because we had so much line, but the, you know, and that's just the way it is. I mean, to some extent, those costs are fixed. You're not gonna be able to haul. We have a very inexpensive sludge hauler, but that contract's up again at the end of this year. So we're gonna see a slight increase, but hopefully it's not a huge increase. But we continue to bounce around on the potential of looking at a sludge press or something that we can allow us to deal with that is case sludge, so we won't pay as high a hauling costs. But then that's a capital project. So, you know, at some point in time, you have to weigh that, you know, what's the rate of repayment on that?
Right.
3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And that's, unfortunately, we've been tied up with the GAC for the last 3 years, and it's been hard to get into another project like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mast?
Adam, in your chemical budget, does that include the carbon media for the GAC?
It does.
That's in that budget?
It is an interesting, you know, the carbon has almost tripled in cost. And carbon was really expensive to start with, or it was expensive to start with. But like, we contracted our Calgon as our supplier at the beginning of this year. I think we signed contracts to replace all 8 cylinders in February of this year, which is just about a year from when they were first ordered online. I have 2 cylinders replaced, or 2 sets of cylinders. I have 4 cylinders replaced already. I have 4 more to go. They're replacing those cylinders about every 2 months. That's the fastest they can regenerate them and bring them back to us. It's taken that long. And I actually will be regenerating the first 2 sets that we did. We'll already need it before I get the last one done. So it's just because their holdover time is so long. And again, that's an industry situation.
I guess my only other question, Mr. Sprague, is what, on the table of the proposed rates that we've got here, how does that compare to what was proposed prior to this update? I mean, do you have a
I
comparison?
looked and it was like it was 3 less than 1. I didn't bring that with me. It was between 3 and 4% for 4 years. It was not, it was minimal compared to this.
I think didn't we just have this discussion within the last 2 years to set the rates for
The rates would have been set, they were up in 23, they adjusted in 23, 22, 21, and 20. So it would have been prior to 20, you would have set in 19 for those 4 years.
So the biggest raise is gonna be 24, obviously.
Yes. And what this did was it kind of took what could have been a 10 or 12 and kind of just stretched it out, because that was significant. You know, that would be a significant hit to the whole, you know, to everybody, you know, participating. So this, you know, is more manageable. I think especially if somebody, you know, on a monthly budget, strict monthly budget, you know, this is a little more manageable than looking at a 12 and then a 111 or so, you know, something to that effect. And allows us to maintain a balance in those funds in the event. And then I built in his chemical cost, and those were not in there prior, because prior in 19 you wouldn't have known that was gonna happen. You know, you wouldn't know. So
I do believe though that Kim, that the GAC was forecasted in that rate cycle, but none of the increases.
No,
so
right.
I think we were looking at, we were on track with the original. I think what we're seeing here is just the impact of the last couple of years.
Correct.
Cost increases.
Yeah.
that were outside of scope.
Yeah.
Mr. Waxler?
I know originally a few years back when we put that rate of use charge on the people, you know, we had said at that point, you know, we're pushing this because we're going to the GAC system and we're gonna save all this money because we can have all these chemicals. Chemical use is gonna go way down. And then, you know, we said that that would eventually come off, and now we're here, 4 years later, and telling them we're adding to 7%. I mean, I get the chemical, I understand it, but I guess I don't understand how we're using all these chemicals when we spent millions and millions of dollars for this system that was supposed to do away with these chemicals.
We are turning the GAC around quicker than what was anticipated. The biggest reason for that is the quality of the water coming into the plant is not very good. We don't really have any way of controlling that. We talk about source water protection, Joe Ewers, Jen English. I think we're all involved in attempting to work to protect our source water. It's a difficult task for us when our intake is basically at the western edge of our boundaries. That's number one. Number two, Adam, I don't know whether you addressed this, and maybe it's not the case. Mr. Waxler is absolutely correct. When we were discussing GAC, there was some thought that we might use a little less chlorine. Are we using less chlorine?
We are using less chlorine, but it tripled in cost.
Yes, exactly. But I did want to make the point that, Mr. Waxler, we are using less chlorine. Sadly, it's tripled in price. And the media, the carbon in the GAC, charcoal basically, has what in price?
Tripled in price.
Tripled in price.
So what good's our reservoir do us then? I thought that was to bring in water and have it.
You're gonna have to, Adam, you're gonna have to
Well,
answer.
I can tell you this, we're selectively pumping water from the river to the reservoir. Typically, on an average year, we can pump less than 150 days. We have about 60 days supply in the reservoir. If you've been up with the reservoir on a regular basis, you've seen it almost empty a lot because we can't pump anywhere near enough water fast enough, and it doesn't hold anywhere near enough water to be able to get good quality water because it only has very few days. Probably that 150, probably 70 of that 150 are actually really good water. It's just the reservoir will be empty if we don't pump 150. So the problem is the reservoir is too small and our pumpage capacity is too small because the standards at the time when the reservoir was built are higher than they are now for water quality. Higher. Our contaminant levels could be higher. It wasn't really built to fix water quality. It was actually built to be able to get around nitrate problems. We were under findings for nitrate, excessive nitrates. But the problem with it is that when we put water in the reservoir, we actually have algal blooms in the reservoir. We spent more this year. We spent double this year for algicides in the reservoir than any year we have previous in any year. And our algicide costs, they didn't go up at all. Those have held really solid. In 22 or 21 and 21 was a really bad year. Was the worst year up to this year. 22 was great, and then 23 we doubled 21. Because we had a nice warm summer, lots of sunlight, lots of nutrients in the river, and we had algae we've applied almost every week. So the reservoir has helped some things. It's made it more consistent. It's made it more challenging in others. But we end up with organic loading in the reservoir that just continues to climb every year as well. So we had hoped to cut, when you made the comment about reducing chemicals, we did hope to reduce some chemicals. And in some cases, some of them we have. But the problem with it is that when you're seeing 100% increase in chemical costs, even if you have a 20%, 25% reduction in chemicals, you're still looking at a 50, 60% increase in chemical costs. And then, like I said, with the GAC, I'm paying more now, probably 40 or 50% more for regenerated carbon now than new carbon was when it was put in at the end of 20. So we're just, you just can't deal with that as a whole. But just remember too, the GAC is an add-on to the end of our plan. So when we still treat the water just like we did before, and then the GAC polishes that water when it's done.
We had hoped to be able to reduce some of that and not over-treat the front of it, maybe offset with the backside and reduce chemicals like with chlorine. But we still run the exact same plant in the front side as we did before. But we can't meet the quality standards with the original plant. The GAC is what we needed to be able to meet the standards that the EPA has now. So we still have to run that initial plant, which is still fairly chemical heavy. And with our source water, I don't know if you could run any other way. It would be hard to run, say, an RO plant or something like that. And then that would have its own share of high dollar items. So whether it be electrical or even chemicals in that case. So it just comes down to the source water.
That was my next question. Do we have any RO source? I mean, we don't do any of that right now.
We don't do RO at all. But RO for us, we would still, Napoleon runs an RO system, but what they do is their RO system comes at the end like our GAC does. So they do a full conventional treatment just like we do and then run it through RO at the end. And they wish they had GAC because that has issues. Bowling Green does a split plant, but they run a conventional plant as well and an RO plant side stream. So in our situation with our volume, it would have been a bad idea to go down that path at some point in time, cost-wise, and our capital costs. You're either gonna deal with it capital, or you're gonna deal with operating.
Right.
Capital costs would have been extremely high. Electrical costs would have been very, very high.
When you, I'm not sure the exact term, backflush that RO system, what happens to that water?
RO systems, it's actually not even backwash. RO systems waste a ton of water. So it's like, it depends on how fine your systems are, but sometimes it can be as much as only 1/4 of the water that you put in is finished water. So you treat 4 million gallons to get 1 million gallon, or it can be 3 to 1. It depends on what type of system. But then the problem is the discharge water comes out of those RO systems and go to wastewater plants and gives them total dissolved solids issues.
That's where I wanted to go.
That makes them violate. So those plants, those cities that have that, have huge problems with TDS.
Mr. Mast?
The mayor recently mentioned in an interview about recycling municipal water and reusing it. What's the reality of that, and have you seen anybody doing that?
Typically in really water poor areas, when you get out west, Arizona, places like that don't have a lot of water to start with, that's when you start seeing a lot of reclamation or reuse. There's a lot of places that circle out gray water, they'll do irrigation, things like that with discharge. You do see some reclamation though, full on reclamation, but you're gonna almost have to RO that water. And in our situation, we have so much raw water to start with, it's not very practical for us. Mark does a great job and their effluent's really clean, but it would be complicated to go to full reclamation. It would definitely be complicated.
And you have the X factor.
The mayor was quoted, I wasn't quoted the same.
I was in Santa Barbara, they do it out there. They even have signs up letting you know.
It's probably easier to treat wastewater to potable standards than it is brackish water and salt water. Salt desalinization is very expensive and very hard to do, so.
And I also noticed with the rate sheets, sorry, I'm not trying to direct up here with the rate sheets. It's looking at the 500 cubic feet monthly as your average that you went by. That doesn't include the 15 for garbage. And do we foresee that increasing within the next 4 or 5 years? The garbage rate?
Yeah, that would be according to our Whirler contract that you recently renewed. That goes through 2044. And there's a schedule, I don't have the table in front of me, but there are increases built into that.
Because I'm also looking at, I know that is included in our water bill. We're gonna have an increase in garbage, plus we're looking at possibly increasing here. It may end up with being more than the 7%.
There will be increases with the Whirler service. That's correct.
Thanks.
So do we have any more questions for Ms. Sprague or Mark or Adam?
We're done? All right, thanks everybody for sharing all this difficult information that has to be talked about, as tough as it is, so everybody did a good job, thanks.
So we have a motion to adjourn the meeting of the whole?
Oh, emo.
Did you,
Sure.
That's your motion? Second? All those in favor of adjourning the meeting of the whole, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. It was very educational.
And so welcome for a tour anytime.
Absolutely. You guys wanna come and talk numbers too? Got lots of them.
All right, thank you. Before we convene this evening, I reviewed the index minutes for our September 26th council meeting. Do we have a motion to amend the index minutes as they're presented? Without any, I'll endorse them. And do we have any liaison meeting requests or reports? Do we have any comments from council this evening? Mr. Waxler?
Yeah, I had a call Sunday about, and I talked to Melinda about this, I'm pretty sure, a few months back, but right after they got done with the sidewalks on South Clinton Street, there was 3 or 4 spots down through there that were broke, where they put the equipment on it, and she said that was gonna be taken care of. Well, I was informed Sunday they're still not taken care of, and they're getting worse.
Where exactly along that street?
There's,
Do you have
they
any-
said there's 3 or 4 spots. I know the one is right there on the corner of Bassard and, or the second house in there. Right there in his sidewalk, and then there's 3 more on down. But I had been told about this before, and I'm pretty sure I addressed out Melinda back then, and she was gonna
I'll take a look.
make, she said it was gonna be taken care of before they,
I'll take a look into it.
okay. And then, they're calling tree limbs on down sidewalks. And the specific place they talked about was Downs and Jefferson, around the corner. I didn't get a chance to drive down there, but they said tree limbs are clear down the sidewalk, you can't walk.
They haven't fallen, they're just.
No,
They're just hanging too low.
They need trim,
Yep.
yeah, I'm sorry,
We'll take a
yeah.
look at it.
And that's it for you?
Yep.
All right, thanks. Mr. Hancock?
I just had some citizens' concerns regarding yard signs. I know it's beginning of the season for yard signs and placement of the yard signs. And it was suggested that we could possibly post something as far as what our ordinance is for placement of yard signs on our website.
Okay.
If possible.
For
And I-
example, can't be in the city's right away. Yep,
Which means that it can't be between the curb and the sidewalk, correct?
generally that's correct. Yep.
If they have a
But they can be behind the sidewalk to the house or the facility.
Feel free to move them. That's what we do.
That's means no sidewalk, you can go clear the street.
10 feet.
You are,
I know
you
that
are
too.
empowered as representatives of the city. If you see them, grab them, put them in the back of your car. If you're gonna drop them off at the police department, that's where our city crews take them when they catch them.
I'll bring them to your office. No, that was just a concern and they asked if we could put that on the site. Thank you.
Any other comments from council? All right, on to the Board of Control. Mayor McCann.
I'll take the night off, sir.
All right. Mr. Mack.
I thought you were gonna do. Oh.
Don't fight over it, John.
He's the mayor.
He gets to get the kudos.
Watching my grandson in soccer tonight, fighting about who's gonna throw the ball in. But I just wanna say what a marvelous rib fest we had this year. It had to have been a record. I don't think we know that for sure yet, but just looking up the street and how busy we were at our gate. Mrs. Bragg said she was busy at her gate. It was a wonderful evening. Ohio State didn't play, so, I think one of the things we need to do is work with Ohio State to see if they can take their off week at the same time as the Rib Fest. That would certainly help there. And, but, everybody had fun, and it's my understanding, I'm not one to judge the music. People that are told me how good the music was. The ribs were good from all three vendors that I sampled. And it was just a great night. There's a lot, you start mentioning names and I'll leave people out. It's all obviously headed up by the Visitors Bureau. And Kirsty apparently works so hard she's homesick. So that's really all I have.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mack?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So we find ourselves in October, which means we have some events and things coming up this month. So I wanted to make sure the council and the general public were aware well in advance. October 26th will be the night of trick or treat. So mark your calendars for that event. And then our annual Lions Club Halloween Parade. We actually had a planning meeting for it today, going through some of the ins and outs of it. That Halloween parade will be the evening of the 28th. And then secondly, Whirler, earlier today put out an announcement to us, asked us to share it on our website, and I wanted to share it with you here and with the public. So these are just a couple bullet points from them they want people to be aware of. So this is in regards to the recycling Mighty Tidies that we approved along with the contract that Sean was talking about earlier. So Mighty Tidy carts will be delivered the week of October 30th. Whirler will be delivering all week, Monday through Friday, those carts. The new 65-gallon Mighty Tidies will be delivered on residents' normal trash pickup day. Please leave all the 18-gallon green recycling bins out by the road. Those will be picked up. The new one will be dropped off. You'll no longer be able to use those green ones in the future now that we're switching over to the Mighty Tidies. If you currently have a 96-gallon Mighty Tidy, we'll have to swap it out for the 65-gallon. All recyclable material will have to fit inside the Mighty Tidy itself. This includes cardboard. And if you currently recycle using 18-gallon recycling bins and you have not signed up, then you need to call call Whirler right away at 419-784-4285. So again, just to recap, they will be being delivered and dropped off the week of October 30th. And that's all I have.
If you already have a recycler, they just automatically bring it, right? Is that true, or do you have to call them?
I would call just to double check.
Okay. Cause I wasn't sure, I know a lot of people have the bins, if they have to call or not, that's why I was just trying to.
If you already have a bin and you set it out by the curb, they will take it.
Swap it out.
And leave you the 65 gallon.
That's what I'm
Okay.
asking, that's what I thought.
If you don't want one, you should call.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. President.
Mr. O'Donnell?
I have nothing for you at this time.
Ms. Sprague?
I think I had enough. And I did have a great time at the Rib Fest. It was really nice. The weather was perfect and it's and I was thankful I just had to work a tent and let people in, or ID. That was simple. But the kids that came and cleared off all the tables out of there, thank God for them, because they were hustling about 11 o'clock at night.
I mentioned this at Rotary yesterday, but the high school football team and others from Defiance High School, Defiance College football and baseball teams were all there and helped. And, that's the muscle that we need, because there's nobody in this room capable of doing that.
No.
I've had to do it before, and you can tell by the fact that I'm walking today that we're very thankful that those college and high school athletes come and do it for us now.
They were doing a phenomenal job when I was there at 11 o'clock at night, so that's all I have.
That's morning for them.
Thank you.
I know, it's like they had somewhere to be, so they were really hustling along, but they did a great job.
You remember those days? They did have some place to be.
Yeah. I just wanted to go to bed.
Our crews too.
Yeah.
Driving down Defiance at 9:30 Sunday
Street
morning.
sweeper came at 12:30 in the morning, and if you came Sunday morning through town, they did a pretty good job.
It was spotless. I walked through there about 9 with the dog, and you would have never known, other than the guy cleaning up the porta pots. It was spotless. So.
Well, thank you. Ms. Elders?
Third reading by caption only, an ordinance vacating the right-of-way between lots 53 through 65 and Ottawa Terrace addition to the city of Defiance and East Side Park as amended.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. This is the alley located behind the properties on just south of Hague Street and the East Side Park. And this is the third and hopefully final reading of this ordinance. I don't think you want to hear it again. Passage would enable the city to record the ordinance 30 days from today, so November 2nd.
Great. Do we, Mr. Engel?
No question here, I think, motion to adopt. Suspend the clause.
You don't have to suspend.
Oh, you don't have to suspend the clause, right, yeah.
Yep, motion to adopt, and do we have a second? Second, Mr. Mast?
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Matt?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
And Mr. Engel?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted.
First reading by caption only, an ordinance authorizing a contract for the downtown Clinton Street corridor pedestrian improvements and declaring an emergency.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. President. For years and even decades now, the city has tried to foster the economic and cultural viability of the downtown. There are several business leaders who are actually trying to do just that right now, and I believe some may be in this room. What we have found overall, not everyone, but overall, is that people, if they do not feel safe walking around downtown in the crosswalks, if they're worried about becoming one of those 5 pedestrians hit in the crosswalks like last year, or one of the multiples of that who've experienced the close calls, it's quite simple. They're just not going to spend their time or their money downtown, and that impacts our businesses. It's just too easy to shop online or go to Fort Wayne or Toledo. So to address that, the city has applied for and received a grant administered by the Ohio Department of Transportation. It's called the Abbreviated Safety Funds Program. What it does, it funds 90% of certain safety improvements that we've identified. You heard the city engineer speak to you last week about what those are, with a 10% match from the city. The city administration is proposing to make improvements to the traffic signals on the south end, beginning at Clinton and 5th Streets, and then at each intersection going all the way up Clinton Street to North Clinton and High Streets to that intersection. The city solicited for bids, and Perham Electric of Wadsworth, Ohio, submitted the lowest and best bid at the price of $123,250. And that's well below the engineer's estimate of probable costs of that, plus the 90% grant gives us some real savings. And your authorization of this ordinance would enable city officials to execute the contract right away and begin the project with a final date of final completion of June 1st of next year.
Excellent. Mrs. Crutch?
Yeah, I had asked Melinda about the possibility of tonight having some viewing for the community to see exactly where their no turn on reds were going to be, whatever, but she did get back to me because I kind of said it too late. But she said that they will be putting under the website on the city projects. So people can, community members that were concerned that wrote me an email, that they can get on that website and watch those things. So I just wanted to make sure that known.
Sent out a notification at the same time, Mrs. Crutch, so everybody knows it's there.
We also heard one of the nice things the health department said last week was they are interested and they will be out promoting education as we move forward with this to make sure that the public is aware. So there will be a nice team up between the city of Defiance and the health department in making sure everyone's aware.
Thank you.
Mr. Wexler?
Yeah, I still got my only problem with this is doing away with that left turn at the second. I don't understand, there's cities bigger than us with a lot more foot traffic and stuff that can maintain left and right turns and stuff. I don't understand why that one, we can't do that safely. I just don't.
I'll counter that, Mr. Waxer, with that there are cities that have done this very thing in their downtowns. As you know, I'm involved with the NCAA. I spent some time in Indianapolis, and in their downtown, they've done that very thing. They've eliminated lanes of traffic. They've added bike lanes along with the markers. I don't know how they handle their snow removal. It has to be difficult, but they've done it, and they've eliminated a lot of left turns. You have to make right turns and go around the block the other way if you miss where you can turn left. We'll all adjust. We're creatures of habit initially, you're absolutely correct. And I will be the one that goes downtown and gets to Second Street and can't turn left, at which point I'm gonna either have to change my plans entirely or go up and make a right on First Street or Fourth Street and go around the block and come back. I'll do it once or twice. It's just like hitting your head, which I don't do very often, but you hit your head on something, you learn to duck. I appreciate your concerns, but I truly believe we'll adjust.
No, I get that too, but we're told, you know, she was telling me that we can't do it because it messes up the timing. That's not a good answer for me, we can't address.
I thought Melinda articulated it pretty well because, and I'll try and explain it again and jump in. But, so if you're northbound and you're at Second Street.
Yep.
And we allowed the left turn because of the timing that's being proposed, that light for northbound traffic is gonna turn to yellow. Only for northbound traffic. The southbound traffic is gonna stay green.
I get that, yep.
So what do we all do when the light changes yellow? We think the oncoming traffic's gonna stop, so we commence our turn, only the oncoming traffic's not gonna stop. That's the reason at that intersection, it has to be that way. How'd I do?
And to adjust the pattern of southbound vehicles turning left, that arrow is going to be at the beginning of the cycle rather than the end.
So why can't the arrow going south?
It's gonna be at the end, not the beginning.
Right.
Why can't the arrow going south be the same way? Or going north?
It messes up with the pedestrian flow of things. Remember, we're leaving those pedestrians a 3 second head start to get out.
Yes.
Right, but you're gonna be doing that when they're turning left going south, right?
We're treating that crosswalk differently. We sat in here a few years ago when Mannick Smith showed us
I was here, I remember seeing all that.
cartoon of it.
Yeah.
And that was all in there. I think we'll adjust.
Mr. Esty?
No further questions, motion to suspend and call.
We have no further questions here. Do we have any questions, ladies? Okay, we have a motion to suspend and call. Second, Mr. Corbett?
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
And Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Second, Mr. Engel?
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
No.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
And Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted. Do we have any, with the items of legislation addressed, do we have any citizens' concerns before we adjourn for the evening? No? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Second. Mr. Hancock?